What if the greatest threat to a marriage isn't betrayal, but silence? One woman takes a simple step to protect her family, and suddenly, trust is quietly tested. No scandals, no villains, just a single moment that could change everything. The strongest relationships aren't defined by what goes wrong, but by what doesn't. Due to the difficult economic circumstances and declining family income, this woman decided to find a part-time job to help support her family.
お電話いただいた白花さん。
はい。
With mixed feelings of anxiety and hope, she applied for a job at a small restaurant near her home. And as she walks in to apply, her emotional state is a mixture of hope and self-doubt. Hope that she can help, fear that she won't be enough, but she still bravely moved forward. The manager she meets does not rescue her. He observes. He listens. He notices her sincerity, her openness, her desire to learn. What he offers first is not opportunity, but safety. A space where mistakes are allowed, where growth is expected, not demanded. For someone already carrying internal pressure, this kind of environment can feel like oxygen. As she begins working, her life becomes fuller, not louder. Long days, tired evenings. And yet, something subtle shifts inside her. Effort gives her structure. Learning gives her confidence. Friendly interactions remind her that she still has value beyond the roles she performs at home. She is careful, though. She does not escape into work. She returns home. She remains present. She balances, imperfectly, like most humans do. What makes this story compelling is not what goes wrong, but what could have. Because when new connections form under stress, the human mind often fills in fears before facts. Trust is rarely tested by dramatic betrayal. More often, it is tested by ordinary moments that could be misread, misunderstood, or quietly feared. And that is where this story gently pauses, right before assumptions take over, and before we ask ourselves what trust really means when life becomes difficult. As the days at the restaurant pass, she grows more capable. Her hands move with more certainty. Her voice sounds steadier when she greets customers. From the outside, this looks like simple progress. But psychologically, growth often creates a quiet tension. At home, nothing is wrong. And yet, something feels different. Not distant, not cold, just altered. She is more tired. Her mind is fuller. Conversations with her husband become shorter, not because they care less, but because energy is limited. The manager continues to guide her patiently. He explains processes, shares lessons from his own years of experience, not as instructions from above, but as stories. She doesn't feel pulled toward him. She feels supported by the structure he provides. Yet from a psychological perspective, support itself can be confusing when someone hasn't felt seen in a while. Here is where many people misunderstand such situations. They imagine danger where there is none, or innocence where awareness is required. The truth is quieter. She becomes more alive in a space where her efforts are acknowledged. That doesn't mean she is seeking something outside her marriage. It means she is reconnecting with her sense of usefulness. Inside her, questions surface, not about loyalty, but about identity. Who am I now that I am contributing again? What do I bring into my marriage beyond exhaustion? These questions are not threats. They are signs of growth. Her husband, meanwhile, senses change without naming it. He notices her fatigue, her quieter evenings. Not suspicion, just uncertainty. This is the fragile space. No mistakes have been made. No lines have been crossed. Yet the emotional load is heavy. Because trust is not only about faithfulness, it is about whether two people can remain emotionally aligned while evolving separately. Most relationships don't fracture because of one event. They fracture because tension is left unspoken. And here, the question is not whether something bad will happen, but whether awareness, communication, and inner clarity will arrive in time. There is a moment when the mind can no longer sustain its own tension, not because the answers have appeared, but because the questions have become too heavy to carry. For her, that moment doesn't arrive through confrontation or dramatic change. It arrives quietly, in the space between one thought and the next. As she finishes her shift, the manager walks with her toward the nearby train station. They talk about work, about routines, nothing personal, nothing hidden. And yet, this is precisely the kind of moment where meaning can be projected rather than created. Then, almost unexpectedly, the moment crystallizes. They see her husband. This is the instant where many relationships either fracture under imagined fear or strengthen through clarity. But what happens next is subtle, and that subtlety is the point. There is no defensive posture, no hurried explanations. The manager greets her husband respectfully. She introduces them naturally. Behavior aligns with intention. There is nothing to hide because nothing has been displaced. Her husband's response is calm, not because he is unaware, but because trust has been practiced long before this moment. Inside her, something releases. Not relief from being caught, but relief from carrying imagined tension alone. In this brief encounter, she realizes that clarity does not require perfection, only alignment. This is the climax, not because something dramatic happens, but because something doesn't. The anticipated rupture never arrives. And that absence reveals the deeper truth of the story. When trust is grounded in shared values rather than control, it doesn't need constant defense. In that quiet walk forward, she understands something essential. Growth does not threaten love when it is integrated, rather than hidden. And trust, when cultivated daily, holds even when circumstances change. What stays with us after a story like this is not the scene at the train station, but what it reveals about everyday life. Most people are not navigating dramatic betrayals or clear moral failures. They are navigating pressure, fatigue, and the quiet fear of becoming disconnected from the people they love while trying to survive. This story also gently challenges the idea that balance means perfection. She did not manage work and family flawlessly. She was tired, sometimes quiet, sometimes uncertain, and yet she stayed connected. Support does not have to be invasive to be meaningful. Healthy environments are those where learning is encouraged without emotional dependency. And trust is built long before it is tested. It is built in ordinary moments, consistent behavior, honest presence, and the absence of hidden narratives. When people live in alignment with their values, clarity replaces suspicion almost automatically. For anyone watching who feels the quiet strain of responsibility, this story offers reassurance. You are not failing because life feels heavy. And your relationship is not fragile because circumstances are difficult. What matters is whether you are walking forward together, allowing space for growth without letting silence do the talking for you. In the end, a stable future is not created by avoiding change. It is created by meeting change with openness, empathy, and the courage to remain emotionally available, even when life gets hard. If this story made you pause and reflect, don't let that feeling fade. Like the video, subscribe for more thoughtful stories, and share it with someone who might need this reminder today.